Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name's Darren Tang, and today I have professional bowler Anthony Shannon, aka the Shannon Cannon, with me. Today, we are going to start with how to get out of a slump. So as a professional bowler, sometimes we fall into some tendencies that we may not like, but we were talking about how he's been struggling lately, and he feels like he might be in a slump. And I describe to the people what's going on right now and why you're feeling this way.
Yeah, so I mostly bowl on the West Region Tour and haven't been performing as well as I did last season. My hand doesn't feel like it's getting through the ball as well as it did last season or in times prior when I feel like I'm bowling well. So I feel like my thumb's kind of getting down on it. My hand's coming over it, I'm rotating the ball more than I need to, and my swing's getting steep, and it just doesn't feel right. Timing feels off, and I don't feel comfortable getting out of the ball. Nothing feels quite right.
All right, so we're gonna highlight two things in this video. There are gonna be three tips actually physically, but there's gonna be two things regarding the slump. So we're gonna try to iron out his physical issues, and then the second thing is more of a mental tip about how to get out of a slump. There are some things I wanna identify with Anthony's game that tend to be a little shaky at times. So like he mentioned, he gets kind of over the top, around it too much. As professional bowlers, we try to get our hands as underneath and inside the bowling ball as possible. Helps us control the middle of the lane, and it gets our ball into the roll phase at the correct time so that we can strike as much as possible. The second thing that I notice a lot is the position of the bowling ball at the top of the swing. His swing gets way too far behind his head, and that causes him to get over the top. His swing has to come back around his body, and it can cause alignment issues as well. But there's one thing that Anthony actually mentioned before we started shooting, that he actually worked with Mark Baker. You want to explain what that is?
Yeah, so the number one thing that normally Mark tells me that I'm doing wrong, that sort of hand over the top position doesn't have anything to do with the release. It has everything to do with how I'm getting to the spot where my hand is supposed to come through the swing. So normally what happens is when I'm doing that, my push-off is not nice and long and soft, and I'm not letting the ball swing. What happens is my push-off gets quick and I pull it down. When the ball pulls down, body opens up, swing gets a little high, and when I come down, the only way to compensate is to, flare out my shoulder this way, and my hand comes over the top of it like that. I'm able to feel or identify this problem of my hand doing this, but there's nothing really to change my hands. I need to change the stuff that happens before then so I can enable my hand to get in the right position.
So you want to be really careful when you're making adjustments. You want to look at everything that could potentially be causing your issues, because if you try to change it at where it's happening, you could be making adjustments that are harder to undo when you finally find the source of the problem that was causing that. So now you're just putting band-aids over band-aids over band-aids, and you're not actually finding a solution to the problem. So what we're gonna do with Anthony today, we're gonna have him throw some shots. We're basically just gonna get him sharper so that moving forward, he could have more success like he did last year and hopefully win his first regional title. It's really important that you try to make sure you isolate one coach. I know Anthony works with Baker a lot, which isn't a problem because we hang out a lot as well, and I try to keep an eye on things. So I don't try to mess with things too much with Anthony too often. I just let him know when things are happening, and then whatever he learns with Mark, that's what he just tries to apply to change it. It's not so much me trying to coach Anthony, it's more being a second pair of eyes, being able to identify when things are getting off, and typically your results are gonna tell you when things are off. All right, so what Anthony's gonna try to do is really soften up that push away, nice and soft, let it drop. Transition through it really smooth. So one of the goals here is to be softer with the swing, which is kind of the same as being loose. You get to this point, you just let it drop. Swing should act like a pendulum, like we alluded to in the previous tips video. That allows the swing to stay nice and straight, everything stays on line, and it actually allows you to get your hand in spots that you want to get to easier, because the more muscle you use, the more tense you are, and that makes it harder to move those muscles. At his push, being really soft, for me, it's just staying loose, and that's gonna help Anthony achieve a straighter swing and help him get his hand behind the bowling ball at the bottom of release. Now he's striking at will, but of course, Anthony is a professional bowler. You may not have seen him on tour. He may have aspirations to go out one day, but for now, he's trying to dominate the regional tour. Anthony does have a little bit of a loop in his swing, but it is better than the opposite. So a lot of players will just pull it behind him, and then it comes back around. Anthony's actually, when it gets behind, the shape of his swing is actually still kind of out to in. It just gets a little too over-exaggerated at times. So that loop helps him throw it to the right. So as long as he's not, over-hitting it, over-rotating his shoulders, things like that, and he's staying nice and soft, that swing path is okay because everything still stays on line. Just really want to make sure you stay nice and loose at the beginning. One thing that I see in Anthony's game that I'm not the biggest fan of, and I don't really recommend it to you, is how far out he starts the ball. Because the further away the ball is from your body, the more muscle you have to use to keep it up there. So the closer you have it to your body, the more relaxed you're able to be. But that's just kind of one of Anthony's things where the body does what it wants. He's always going to gravitate towards being in a certain position. So I don't know if that's something that he tries to change or not. I like to call it free momentum if you can get a little more of a push going. A lot of players just keep the ball there and just let it drop. Either way is fine, but if you do feel like you have issues getting your ball into the swing and being nice and loose, maybe try holding the ball a little closer to your body. But yeah, that was really good. It was really soft off his hand. I know when we were warming up earlier at the beginning of the day, he wasn't getting out of it so good. Really important to stretch, by the way, just so you can get going as fast as possible. But since his swing's really softened up since then, he's getting out of it nice and clean. He's getting onto the lane really good. And I think, he's been struggling, but we've worked on the game a little bit today, so he's making some steps in the right direction.
Whoa.
Did you feel like that was pretty good?
I feel like it was okay. It probably wasn't as soft as the other shots. Felt like myself getting a little more steep on that one.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that you actually threw one that wasn't as good, because for a while I was like, oh, that was good, that was good, that was good. And they were all doing the right thing, but he finally kind of made that one move where it's really hard to feel sometimes, where he's pulling it down just a little more and your body's always going to start creeping back towards what it wants to do. So it's really important that, every 3 or 4 shots or so, you really over-exaggerate. You lock down on what you're trying to work on, what you need to do. That way you can keep moving forward. Hopefully your body gives you a little more every time. But on that shot, you can tell with the ball reaction, it may not be located in the correct spot, but it wasn't that far off. Just that little bit of grab, that little bit of force caused the ball to pick up a lot quicker. So now maybe this is one of those shots where you go, okay, I really need to over-exaggerate it. Feel like, if this is a 5, maybe I feel like it's a 2, something like that. I like to use numbers to try to associate with feelings. Again, I don't think Anthony can say that was his best, but at least he's trying to feel like it's less than it was before as far as how much he's pulling down on the shot. So he's over-exaggerating, he's working towards it, and you're not always going to make great shots, especially when you're changing things. You got to be okay with throwing a shot that's just didn't feel great, because it's going to be uncomfortable. So with you being uncomfortable, you can't make your best shot. It's not going to feel great. I still take that as a win, even though he kind of fell off the shot, didn't throw it the way he wanted to. He'll probably tell you that, I really did try to feel like this was softer than the shot before. That's all that's really important, is that you're making that conscious effort to make changes. As long as you're doing that, you're always taking steps in the right direction. And there we have it. I feel like Anthony's physical game issues are very simple, they're very easy to work on. Yours at home may be a little more complicated. Maybe you're just not quite as seasoned as Anthony. He's been bowling for a while. He knows what he needs to do. He knows what he needs to work on. He's processing these things as he's moving throughout his career. But for you at home, just keep grinding at it, get the reps in. The more experience you can get, the better, because that's where you learn. Stay tuned. We got one more tip for you to help you get out of a slump.
As I mentioned earlier, the past couple tournament showings have been bad. I don't think I placed where I should have placed, and so that's sort of what led me to believe and feel that I am in a slump and something's off. And
sure,
the confidence level just going into tournaments is very low.
Yeah, it gets really hard when you start thinking about the results, and when they're not what you want them to be or expect them to be, your confidence is definitely going to drop. Personally, I don't believe in slumps. I think slumps are entirely mental. It's just a word to cover up everything that's going on. So with that being said, the mental tip I have for you to get out of your slump that doesn't really exist is you just got to focus on the process. Don't focus on the results. You can't change, you can't alter, you can't do anything about the results, but you can heavily influence them. So as long as you keep working on what we worked on today, do the things that Baker's teaching you, that will move you forward in the game, and your results will change as long as you focus on that. So you're basically manifesting bad results by focusing on the bad results. I want you guys at home to really focus on the process, the steps that it takes to get to those results, because that's how you're going to influence the best results possible.